Beating the first trainer in a Pokemon game is always a cool moment, as it's a significant stepping stone towards your goal of becoming the champion. But how quickly could you leave the comfort of your house and begin your reign of terror on the trainers across the Pokemon world? I just know that this is a question that people have been totally wanting an answer to for a long time now, so I figured I would go ahead and give you guys the answer. So, without further ado, it's time to find out how quickly you can beat the first trainer in every Pokemon game. Now, before we get going, I should preference the fact that I am not a Pokemon speedrunner by any means, so I don't know all of the fastest movements. This means that I probably won't achieve the actual fastest times, but they'll be pretty close. Also, when I say the first trainer, I'm not counting the rival, since a lot of the time you battle them right after you boot up the game, so that just wouldn't be fun. Instead, I'm counting the first trainer as the first youngster, bug catcher, or whoever it may be on the first route. Anyways, Pokemon Red and Blue were pretty straightforward, as I tried to make my way out of Pallet Town before Professor Oak stopped us and took us back to the lab. I chose Charmander as my starter, since it was the Pokeball located closest to us. The rival battle went pretty smoothly, but I did run into a couple of wild Pokemon on Route 1. This is probably a good time to mention that in every game, I'll make the text speed fast and turn off battle animations in order to save a few seconds. Anyways, I picked up the parcel, took it back to Professor Oak, and since the catching tutorial is optional in these games, I was able to head straight for the first bug catcher in the Viridian Forest. Charmander easily knocked out his Weedle and Caterpie, so after the victory, I checked the in-game time, which read 7 minutes. However, I'm going to keep a timer next to me while I play through each game instead, just so I end up with more accurate times. So, for Pokemon Red and Blue, I actually got 8 minutes and 36 seconds, most likely because I started the timer right after pressing a new game. Pokemon Gold and Silver got off to a similar start, but we actually had to speak with our mom this time. I know, such a burden. Moving on to the lab though, I selected Cyndaquil, since once again it was the Pokeball right next to me, and I only ran into one Pidgey on Route 29. I dashed straight through Cherry Grove City in order to reach Mr. Pokemon's house, where we spoke with Professor Oak and received the mysterious egg. I would have lost the rival battle on the way back to New Barktown if it wasn't for the random berry that your starter Pokemon holds. After naming the rival, I made my way right back to Route 30, but not before running into a few more wild Pokemon. Finally though, it was time to take on the infamous youngster Joey, and after defeating his top percentage Rattata, I ended up with a time of 10 minutes and 12 seconds, putting Gold and Silver just under 2 minutes slower than Red and Blue. I was worried about Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire because I thought my player character would be a little sore and move slower after being forced to sit in the back of a moving truck. Anyways, I spoke with my mom, met our rival, May, and saved Professor Birch from a dog that was half his size using my Torchic. He then told me that it would be a good idea to go see May on Route 103, but it ended up not being a good idea because I lost to her Mudkip on my first attempt. So, after receiving a free potion, I won the second time around and ventured onwards to Route 102. Here, Torchic knocked out youngster Calvin Zigzagoon, which left me with a time of 10 minutes and 13 seconds. You can probably subtract roughly a minute from that time though, if you weren't bad at Pokemon and lost to May like I did, but for the sake of this video, Ruby and Sapphire comes in 1 second slower than Gold and Silver. Our first remakes of this video, Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green, were on a similar pace to Red and Blue, before we came across the old guy in Viridian City. In these games, you have to watch the catching tutorial, where he doesn't even weaken the Weedle by the way, before being able to progress. And because of that, after beating Bugcatcher Rick, we finished with a time of 9 minutes and 36 seconds, exactly 1 minute slower than Red and Blue. So if the catching tutorial wasn't mandatory, then Fire Red and Leaf Green would probably result in the same time as their Gen 1 counterparts. Getting into the DS era of Pokemon games, I expected Diamond and Pearl to be the slowest up to this point, thanks to them being known for running slowly. So after talking to our mom, colliding with Barry, and stealing Pokemon at Lake Verity, my Turtwig took out the wild Starly. We then officially received our starter from Professor Rowan, before getting a tutorial from Dawn, who then told us to speak with our mom before leaving. This part took up some time, as I had to go back to Twin Leaf Town, get the parcel from Barry's mom, and head back to Sandgem Town. After the catching tutorial, we could finally defeat youngster Tristan Starly, which resulted in a time of 14 minutes and 46 seconds. As expected, the slowest time up to this point. Now, I was predicting that Pokemon Platinum would be slightly faster, but I was actually wrong. Due to us having to go through most of the same things as we did in Diamond and Pearl, along with the rival battle on Route 201, after beating youngster Tristan again, I had a time of 14 minutes and 56 seconds. That honestly surprised me. You would think that Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver would be similar to Fire Red and Leaf Green in the fact that they would come close to their original games. However, because of all the extra cutscenes, like Lyra's Marill coming up to you outside of your house, Lyra meeting your new Pokemon, and the tour that the guy gives you in Cherry Grove City, Heart Gold and Soul Silver resulted in a much slower time. Not to mention, the catching tutorial isn't optional in these games. So after finally reaching youngster Joey and showing him that his Rattata is not in the top percentage, I ended up getting a time of 17 minutes and 17 seconds. Looks like we're just getting slower and slower. Pokemon Black and White were not only a fresh restart for the Pokemon franchise, but they were also a nice refresh after Heart Gold and Soul Silver, thanks to them being a bit faster. Even though we had 3 rival battles against Bianca, Cheren, and N, yes, I'm counting N as a rival, there weren't as many annoying and long pieces of dialogue, minus maybe the Team Plasma cutscene in New Vema Town. Other than that, we reached Route 2 relatively quickly, but guess what? My Tepig got critted by youngster Jimmy's Patrat, so I lost on my first try. After beating him the second time around, I got a time of 15 minutes and 38 seconds, but similarly to Ruby and Sapphire, you can probably take off about a minute or so if you don't suck at Pokemon like I do. I gotta say, Pokemon Black and White 2 really surprised me. We got into Aspertia City pretty quickly, before meeting up with Hugh and receiving Tepig from Bianca. Hugh's Oshawott didn't put up much of a fight, so after going through your generic Pokemon Center and catching tutorials, we were free to move through Route 19, where I didn't run into a single wild Pokemon. I then spammed A through Alder's Dialogue in Flockacy Town, so I quickly got to youngster Terrell on Route 20, whose Patrat stood no chance. And after the fight was over, I looked at my timer to see 10 minutes and 11 seconds, 2 seconds faster than Ruby and Sapphire, and 1 second quicker than Gold and Silver. Little did I know, that time would hardly compare to Pokemon X and Y. I woke up, spoke to my mom, and met the new neighbors before making my way to Aquacord Town. Here, I was given the dumb nickname of Little Exclamation Point before choosing Fennekin as my starter. The battle against Shauna gave us no issues, delivering the professors a letter didn't take long, and the catching tutorial on Route 2 was pretty fast. Before heading inside the Santaloon Forest, I challenged a youngster Austin, easily took care of his Zigzagoon, resulting in a time of 9 minutes and 18 seconds. This is our fastest time since Pokemon Red and Blue. And looking at the games we have left, Pokemon X and Y will probably remain in second place. Now it was time to get into the dreaded Alola games, which are known for their endless amount of cutscenes. First, I had to do the video call with Professor Kukui, then watch Lily escape from the Aether Foundation, before waking up in my bedroom and traveling to Iki Town. Oh, but the cutscenes don't end there. No, we had to save stupid Nebby on the bridge, then make sure we were compatible with our starter, and then take on Hau in a rival battle. After getting some rest, and watching Professor Kukui catch a Pikipek, we could finally take on the first trainer, youngster Jimmy, whose Alolan Rattata was nothing too special. All of that left us with a time of 22 minutes and 57 seconds, by far the slowest time yet. And if you thought Ultra Sun and Moon would be any different, you would be wrong. The start of the game is basically the same, only a couple of events happen in a different order. This time around, we had to defeat Last Audrey's Baneri, before ending up with a time of exactly 23 minutes. That 3-second difference from Sun and Moon probably just came from me making a couple of slower movements. Unfortunately, Pokemon Sword and Shield were much of the same. There were still long cutscenes that we had to sit through, like watching Chairman Rose on the TV and going to see Leon's arrival in Wedgehurst. After that, Sobble became my starter, thanks to it being the closest one to us, before we defeated Hops, Wooloo, and Scorbunny. Then we had to go save the stupid Wooloo in the Slumbering Weld, nearly die while doing so, and meet Sonia in her lab. Hop gave us a brief Pokemon Center tutorial, Leon showed us how to catch a Pokemon, because I still don't know how to do that, before finally we were able to battle youngster Jake and his Squovette. After getting the victory, my time came out to be 22 minutes and 11 seconds. Slightly better than the Alola games, but nothing to celebrate about. I didn't really know how Legends Arceus was gonna go, as this game doesn't feature any random trainers hanging out in the various areas. However, I was pleased to see that before you even leave for the Obsidian Fieldlands, Volo challenges you to a fight. And because there's no regular trainers around, I'm not counting Volo as a rival or anything along those lines. So, once I caught the 3 starters, received death stares while walking through Jubilife Village, and began the trial to become a part of the Galaxy Expedition team, Rowlet made short work of Togepi, giving us a time of 17 minutes and 46 seconds. A little faster than I thought. Lastly, it was time for Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, which were the worst games by far. There's so many things that happen at the beginning, like watching the opening cutscene, speaking with your mom and Clavel, choosing your starter, and defeating Nemona, all before even stepping foot into the first route. From there, we defeated a random Lechonk, fed a sandwich to the good boy Legendary, before it saved us from a bunch of Houndour and Houndoom. We still had to battle Arven though, and get a kind of ugly view from the top of the lighthouse, before eventually knocking out youngster Elian's Tarountula. And it comes to no shock at all that the Gen 9 titles result in the slowest time with 30 minutes and 45 seconds. I'm sorry, but the fact that it takes over 30 minutes just to defeat the first regular trainer is a little absurd. So, taking a look at the final rankings, what can we learn? Well, it seems that Nintendo wants to waste more minutes of our lives by making their newer games even longer. In all seriousness though, I'm not surprised that the most recent Pokemon games are towards the bottom. However, I was shocked to see how quickly you can beat the first trainer in Pokemon X and Y, as well as Black 2 and White 2. But I guess if for whatever reason you want to see how quickly you can beat the first trainer in a Pokemon game, you should stick with Pokemon Red and Blue, as those seem to be the quickest. I had a lot of fun making this video, and I hope you guys enjoyed it just as much. By the way, we recently hit 1,000 subscribers here on the channel, so I just want to say thank you guys so much for the support. That's a goal that I've had for such a long time, and the fact that I've reached it is crazy. For now though, have a great rest of your day, and until next time, deuces!